back, Bill.
We're back.
How's it going over there in Maine? What's the weather like?
Oh man, this has been the coldest winter I can remember. For real. You know, it's been. I don't know if you've been talking to the people back home, but we've been in the teens and the 20s. A lot of snow recently, so just enjoying it. You know, trying to just embrace the season and why fight it. And been getting out on the pond skating a little bit.
Nice.
I haven't hit the slopes, but yeah, it's been a lot of snow and a lot of cold lately, and it's all right. But I think for me, I can handle it in February. It's when it's still coming, like late March, early April. That's when you're like, all right,
Yeah.
get out of here. But we'll see.
Just to be clear, I don't ask you these questions to rub it in that it's 60 degrees and sunny outside. I do miss the winter. I love a good cold winter. I think it's good. Love the snow. It creates a vibe. It's magical. Nothing worse than honestly, I hate a mild winter or like a warm winter. Like let's do one or the other.
Right, bring it. If you're gonna do it, just bring it on. That's how I feel. I like it. It's been good because I can't remember a winter where you could pond skate most of it, and the snow's cool too. So how are the waves this morning? We haven't had much for waves. I know you were getting out there. That's been the one drawback. We haven't had the ocean's been kind of quiet.
They were good. I got to get in there for my. To be honest, when it's kind of chilly and it's cold, and we're fortunate that we have waves consistently. They're not like the best waves, but in the morning, I got to get in, got to get my reps in, got to get some exercise, get myself a little cold plunge, and start my day. So it was good.
What are you wearing for a wetsuit in Monterey in February?
It's a 4.5 with a hood.
Boots and gloves?
Just boots.
Nice.
No gloves. Not yet.
Not yet, man. So yeah, that's not too bad then. I thought you'd be suited up a little bit more out there.
I run hot. I think a lot of people got the 5.4s on, but I still got that East Coast in me. I still got ice in my veins.
Love it.
So we had the PLL Championship Series just wrapped up. Did you watch a lot of that? You said that you caught some of the games.
I tuned in semifinals and finals. The Boston Cannons. They've kind of settled these guys back into cities again. So I've been a Cannons fan since the start.
Same.
So I'm glad that they're still there. Marcus Holman's dad. Is it Brian Holman? Man.
Yeah. Brian Holman.
He's the head coach. So they do this championship series, which is the sixes format, 6-on-6. It was indoors down in Virginia. The Cannons won it last year, the sixes format. So they were defending the title, and fun to see. The sixes, we've talked about it a bit before because it's going to be the Olympic format for lacrosse. It's just a different game. There's no long pole. It's essentially, it feels a little bit like basketball. You're back on forth, 5v5. Some of the, I think, formations are similar to basketball. And there's a lot of offense and a lot of goals, and it's fast-paced. And, the semifinal game was crazy. So New York was up. Did you see this?
I didn't watch the highlight. I caught some. I watched a tiny bit, on Instagram and stuff like that, but I didn't catch like any of the games or like a full highlight reel.
So I believe I believe the score was 22-19. New York was winning, and they had the ball. So I think they mismanaged this. If anybody has a chance and you're interested, but you can go back and watch it. There's under a minute left, New York's got the ball. They're up 3. They're just killing the clock. And the thing with this sixes is there's a 2-point shot, right, which is huge. And it really changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this guy on New York kind of screwed up and tried to lob the ball into the corner, but there was still like 7 seconds left on the shot clock. So he didn't take it all the way down. Doesn't really lob it into the corner. The Cannons goalie snags it. It's Cursed.
Oh yeah,
He's good.
he's great. Yeah,
and snags the ball. Great play, and gets it right up. And I think it was Jeff Trainer, who's like a New England guy. Just high bouncer, bang, 2-point shot. So now it's 22. It was 22-19. Now it's 22-21. And New York has the ball again, and they could have just run out the clock. And this is like something that, you've seen, and it's crazy. It was just undisciplined. What they did was they scored a goal. So instead of running out the clock, they scored with like 7 or 8 seconds left to go up by 2. Kurst gets the ball, gets it right up, and the Cannons stick another 2-pointer to tie it. Just
wow.
outrageous, right? Like it was so crazy. And then they go on to win the game, and then they really just beat Utah big in the final. It wasn't even close. So pretty cool to see, and the Cannons team, they've got a lot of guys that I think are they're very, very hard to stop offensively, and it seemed like some of those like Asher Knowlton, Marcus Holman, those guys were really just, you could see them busting off the whole game after the offensive possession, getting the heck to the box. They would get caught on D sometimes, but they had a good mix of like two-way guys and also just like a good strategy with their substitutions and getting their offensive guys off, and back-to-back champs, and they were pumped. So it was cool to watch, exciting, definitely different than the 10v10 kind of traditional game. But I think the sixes is growing on me a little bit, and it's sort of cool to see how teams are approaching it.
Yeah, it was. I caught, before we hopped on here, I was watching some highlights of the women's championship series, and same thing. That when a goal was scored, the goalie was getting it right out of the net, and first off, everybody was just busting back to either off the field or back on defense right away after the goal was scored, and then goalie was just getting the ball right up out of the net and passing it up. I think it's really interesting how the PLL has chosen to make that the format for the women's lacrosse league. I'm a big fan. I think it's a really cool version of the women's game. I think the women. I know the women's game is so skilled. Playing with a stick with such a shallow pocket. I think the short field version really puts that on display and allows players to shine even more, just on how skilled they are. Because I coach at Stevenson School here. They're in Pebble Beach, and we had a spring break trip in Chicago, and we went and saw Northwestern play. We saw Northwestern play Rutgers, and I mean, these are two just unbelievable Division I teams. I mean, these women were such athletes, and the Northwestern lacrosse program has such a history of winning and championships. So to see them playing live was really cool. That being said, the field was so long. The women's goals are set back even farther than the men's goals. So in between the goals, it was like this track meet. Like Northwestern was so good because these players were just so fast. They would get the ball and they would book it to the other end of the field. And obviously there were offensive sets and things would happen, but there was just so much space in between the nets. And when you see when you see the sixes game happening, it's so cool to see these women setting up these sets. You got Charlotte North, who just shoots the ball, like better than most men, and it's just I think it's a really cool format, and I'm excited to see, where it goes.
Definitely. I feel like the sixes game, it really fits, it fits like you said, the women's game. So I definitely, good call, I think, by the PLL making that the format for the pros.
Yeah. Yeah, I
For the
think
men, I think it's cool how they're doing both. I definitely don't want to see the 10v10 game disappear. I think it's cool to kind of have three formats of lacrosse right now in the men's game. And the women's game, yeah. So it's you got the 10v the field, the sixes, traditional field sixes, and then box. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, I think for men's sixes as a goalie, it's definitely not a goalie's game. The cards are, especially when you get to at the pro level, the way those guys are shooting the ball and how close they are. I mean, even stopping 2-pointers is pretty difficult. So it's difficult. But that being said, sixes when you play it. Well, that being said, I mean it's entertaining to watch. So I don't know that it's a bad version of the game. I wonder, are three formats of the game too many?
I don't think so. I think it's all lacrosse, and
Yeah,
I think it's cool the way it is right now.
yeah. Lacrosse is lacrosse is lacrosse. Cool. Well, then our next the next talking point we have for today is the first day of youth practices for Lacrosse the Bay. This
All right.
is exciting. Yeah. So I'm about to drive around the county like Santa Claus and drop off helmets and gloves and ball bags to all the good boys and girls and coaches.
Saint Sky.
What's that?
Saint Sky.
Saint Sky. Not yet. Not quite yet. But I think, I've been thinking a lot about what lacrosse season. I make the Christmas reference with lacrosse season a lot. And sometimes maybe people think I'm being sarcastic when I say it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it is. It does feel like Christmas, and I oftentimes am trying to really push that or create that. I think lacrosse season was something that I always looked forward to. I don't know. Was that the same? Was that the same thing for you?
100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, as a young kid, I started. Can't remember 7, 8, 9, something like that. But it was like hockey season would end. Sometimes you wouldn't want hockey season to end, but a lot of times you'd be like, whew, all right. And then I just always loved like picking up the lacrosse stick and getting outside. And then, as I got older and like in college when, it was just lacrosse, I remember me and you and some of the guys back, you're on winter break and it's January 9th and we're just running, mile laps and Haas, and you're gassed, but you're pumped because you're getting your body tuned up and making sure you're in the best physical condition you can be, and you're hitting the wall and you're shooting. And it's always like the stoke level and the excitement's always high around this time of year. So definitely, no, 100%.
Well, I think it's interesting with sports right now, at least at the youth level and at the high school level. I think sometimes when we have soccer all year round, like there's soccer programs happening around, flag football, basketball, whatever. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think kids getting off the couch and doing something is always a good thing. But at the same time, sometimes that seasonality of sports gets lost, and I always find myself trying to push back on that because, we have parents whose kids play multiple sports, and I think that's great. But a lot of times the sport that is conflicting is in that sport's lacrosse is happening in that sport's off season, right? And for me, I just think, hey, if you love lacrosse, like spring is lacrosse season, you know, enjoy it while it's there, and then when it's no longer lacrosse season, go on to the next thing, And I think sometimes it's difficult for people to process that, but I'm all about bringing that back where it's like this is the season for it. Same thing with football season. I mean, I got my Pats hat on right now, but God, in the fall, I just look forward to football season. I never even played.
Yeah, and no, it's cool. I think it's healthy for young kids to play different sports and get different experiences, and the skill sets all cross over. You hear a lot of D1 lacrosse coaches. Dom Starja was always big on it. Like we're looking for multi-sport athletes, and some of the best lacrosse players I ever played with were also really good hockey players or football players or basketball players or soccer players. And you still see the same thing today. So yeah, I mean, if you love lacrosse and that's your thing, no, keep the stick in your hands all year for sure, no problem.
Right.
But to each their own, and I certainly think there's a healthy balance between committing very heavily to one sport, and being a kid and having fun playing different sports. And once you get to college, you usually kind of got to make a pick. But even in college, I think especially if you're a D3 level guy or girl, there's still multi-sport athletes out there in college, which is cool. I always love seeing that. We had a couple at Wheaton. I think Corey Best was a good swimmer. Connor Finn was a
Yep.
really good soccer player, and so that's still a thing even to this day. I think it was more common 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But if you're an athlete and you love playing sports, and lacrosse is your main thing, it definitely doesn't mean you have to stop playing those other ones. So
How do you, as a high school coach in the season, balance your love for the game and wanting to make the season fun and enjoyable, and then also successful in terms of the wins and losses columns? Like, what's your philosophy on winning in the spring as a high school coach?
yeah, I mean, like, I think when I inherited the program, I think the team didn't have a winning record the year before, and I think I sort of consciously wanted to make it one. So the goal for me was always like, hey, state championship. That's the goal. Gonna have fun along the way, and lacrosse is a fun game, and I think like making practice fun, and just they're high school kids, and being that age, I think in and of itself is fun when you're around kids your age after school playing a sport. And I've always had a blast playing. It's fun. It was fun for me to play. So it's fun for me to coach, and I try to facilitate that. But with your first team, your varsity team, I think at the first year I took over, we didn't have really much numbers, so we didn't really have a full JV squad. But now, 4 years in, we've got two. So but if you want to be a part of that top squad, there's a certain level of commitment and hard work that has to go into it. And luckily for me, there's kids that really want to win, and they're serious about it and competitive. So the rest of the team can kind of fall in line. But I think as the coach, you gotta strike the balance. I mean, it's lacrosse has always been fun for me, so it's not too difficult to have fun coaching it, and I think that just kind of comes through. But if you want to win, you also have to have a certain level of accountability with the kids, and you can't let them just hang out and mess around. You gotta push them when they have to be pushed. So yeah, I don't know, it's a tricky balance, and it's it's probably different for every coach and for every team, but I think, with that age group, making it fun shouldn't be too tough because the game's a blast. You got a stick and a ball and you're running around. So
That's it's that lacrosse is a fun sport. That's kind of once you get somebody on the field, as long as you got a coach who cares and is going to do their best to give the players a good experience, and kids are out there with guys that they like. I think everything else takes care of itself when it comes to lacrosse. It's just such a fun sport on the boys and the girls side.
yeah, no doubt, and it still is, even as you. I think if you went and you asked the best players in the world that are playing professionally, I think for the most part they'd all tell you that they're having a blast. So
yeah, I believe it. All right, we have a new segment this week. We have our question of the week.
Ooh.
The question of the week is, how do you how do you handle a player that leaves their stick or equipment at the field? I think I'm thinking this more of kind of like a discipline side. So I guess some context. This past weekend we had a play day, and I found a stick that was left in the parking lot. It's a nice stick, it's a nice stick, and the father of the player had texted me afterwards, and I let him know that I have it. But it got me thinking, in when you go back to the roots of the game, the Native Americans believe that the stick is sacred. And there's plenty of interviews with Lyle Thompson or Zed Williams, or I've even heard, Lyle say in person, you got to take care of your stick like it's your best friend, And so I'm always thinking about, okay, how can I instill that in our players? And there are some little things that we do, like when we do dynamic warm-ups. I got this from Stevenson School, but I have the youth kids do it as well. We put our stick face down on the midline or GLE, wherever we're stretching on, and we put our gloves next to it. But okay, how do you instill that in a player? Like, I'm thinking okay, do I make him run 300 yards before I give him the stick back? I don't know, So I guess I was curious your thoughts, Bill.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm just thinking back to, I've lost 2 sticks in my life.
Oh, wow.
One was over in Poland. Yeah, the other one was in Hingham box. And they're still killing me. It's tough when you lose one, because I'm the kind of guy, still just always got my stick with me, and you're right, you got to take care of it. Yeah, it's probably case by case basis. Maybe if your team and your kid needs a wake up call, you can kind of discipline them for it. If it's, I remember one of our kids left all of his equipment and his backpack couple times. He was just, but he needed at that point some just
right.
he needed me to just take care of it for him. So yeah, I think if you kind of got a group of kids that you gotta instill some of that discipline in, and let them know, running them, or maybe tape the stick to the kid's hand for the end of practice or something.
Ooh,
or
that's a good one.
Get creative with it, but
yeah,
for sure, you gotta take care of your stick. I know a lot of, sometimes with the younger kids, you're teaching them hey, these not so much anymore with the mesh, but that was kind of one of the beautiful things about the leather sticks, is they would change with the weather, so you had to rest it on on the table with the ball in it, make sure it didn't get, I guess the mesh sticks, when it gets wet, they still bag out, and you got to kind of maintain them and tighten it up. But that thing's got to be your best friend throughout the spring, at least, when you're in season. So you gotta take care of it, keep it by your side. I always used to take it on the bus with me in college. I remember a lot of guys would just chuck it underneath with the
Yeah.
backs. I'd be like, oh my God, like that's,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think that, leading by example is one thing too. I don't know. Well, it depends. I don't know. The kids always see that, but I think it's an important thing, right? Because in equipment in general, arm pads being left behind, things like that, and I've definitely been guilty of this. We've all been guilty of it in the past, but lacrosse is an interesting sport where it's not football. You kind of you get the pads from the school. I guess in a lot of cases we're giving pads out, but teaching kids the value of their pads and their stick and taking care of it and the respect that goes into that. It's an interesting lesson to teach, and it's something that I always want to. Punishment is a funny thing. I don't know. Like we've had when I remember when we were coaching the Aquidneck Cannons, back in God, that was like 2014 or something.
yeah,
2014 or 2015, I think.
that was a crew.
And we had this group of Portsmouth kind of Aquidneck Island, Rhode Island, kids, and I think the issue was they would never show up on time.
That was one of them. Yep.
there are a couple issues, but I remember I think you initially put in the punishment. It was like, okay, for every minute you guys are late, you have to do a push up, and this was early. This was super early on. It's like every minute you're late, you have to do a push up, and so I think the first time that it happened, you had them all do a push up, or you had them all do their push ups or whatever, and like obviously there was those two brothers, I forget their names, but there was like the goalie and the attackman. They were I think about them to this day. But they probably showed up like 20 minutes late. Everybody they did their push ups, whatever. That was the first day of the tournament. Second day of the tournament, kids show up late again, and I'm like, all right, Bill, like it's time for them to do their push-ups. You're like, if you want to enforce it, that's on you, but like it clearly didn't work. And punishment's such a funny thing, because as a coach you have to pick what hills you're willing to die on for what causes.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Who knows if that was like a summer team, and those kids had summer jobs, and it was like
I don't know if they could have used that as an excuse that day, but
probably not. But no, definitely no excuses for them. I think it was more just like we were probably rolling with what we had, which was kind
right.
of this like laid back kind of chill group of kids that were not fully invested really in the sport, but we're also having fun. And I think we kind of like had to strike the balance between discipline and also just kind of rolling with the culture that we sort of stepped into.
Right.
I think those kids were, they grew up on Aquidneck Island, sweet spot, and they had been kind of doing that thing together for a while, and we were just there for a short time, but that was that was a fun group of kids. I remember that.
It was, yeah. Shout out to Marshall Huggins.
Oh man, we got to get him on here.
That would be a good interview. Yeah, the creator of the greatest summer camp that has ever existed, Beach Dogs Lacrosse Camp.
Yeah, hands down.
Hands down. I love it. Okay, all right. Well, we've got our. We're gonna wrap this episode up with our hot takes. So, would you like to go first?
You kick us off because I still gotta think a little bit.
Okay, I have two hot takes. My first hot take is that after watching the first two games of the season, the University of Albany Great Danes will again win the American East Championship. Go Danes, Dane Train, Scott Marr, most epic D1 coach, of all time, in my opinion. Um, and then my second hot take, I think that I guess it's more of a prediction, or my hot take is that there is going to be an emphasis on, I guess I'm talking my own book, but going to be more of an emphasis or a focus on outcomes in youth sports programs, other than wins and losses. I think a lot of times the marketing that people are using for their programs is championship trophies and things like that. I think college commitments is still a valid marketing thing. If you're getting kids from point A to point B, I think that's a valuable service that you're offering. I think I benefited from that with my lacrosse club team. But I think that when it comes to really demonstrating value for parents that are looking for sports experiences for their kids, they're going to be looking for things. You're going to start to see youth sports programs, not just lacrosse, marketing themselves on things other than championship trophies. So that's my hot take.
Love it. I just had one popping in my head right now. So I think kind of in that same thread, if you are a lacrosse person, whether you're kind of a parent that played the game, or somebody that has experience with lacrosse, looking to get involved, referee, because I think the game needs more officials, particularly that played lacrosse. I was going back and forth with our AD this morning just on our schedule, and was kind of thinking back to last year, and just flat out, I think the officiating situation in Maine is kind of tough. I mean, it's a lot of people trying to keep the game going, and you need refs to ref games if you want to play games. But there's a need, in the state of Maine where I coach high school for good officials. Not to put anybody down or anything, but I think the more people we can get, or even if you didn't really play lacrosse but you're looking to get involved like that, I think you can still probably be a good ref, having not played. But
Totally.
yeah, I do, but I think there is a lot of that in some of the more undeveloped areas where there's a lot of officials that are like, basketball officials, or they're not necessarily, don't have the context of lacrosse. And we see that in the international game too. So if you're looking to give back, particularly if you did play or have a little bit of experience, officiating would be cool. I think I'll do it eventually. I haven't quite reached that point yet. I'm going up to Bowdoin College tomorrow, to Tom McCabe. He's a former Bowdoin head coach who volunteers up there. I used to coach with him, friend of mine. He's invited me up to just go kind of film, practice, hang out. And, one thing I always remember with him, back when we were at Hebron Academy together, was he had the zebra stripes. He was a ref. He always knew the rule book, and he always, would be kind of helping to train officials, going out reffing games, and that was kind of one of the ways he gave back to it. And I think more of that in lacrosse from on just across the globe really, is huge right now. So if you're looking to give back, ref.
Yeah. Just for reference, I mean, when we were at the European Championships this past spring for U20s, coaching Team Poland, I would say 80 or 90% of the international refs hadn't played lacrosse.
It's a problem.
They were not good referees. I'm sorry, but they were not good. But that being said, like, you're talking about somebody who's in a country that lacrosse is not popular, so they don't have that same exposure. Like if you're a parent that's been on the sidelines for years just watching your kid but can't pass and catch, perfect. It's and we have the same in California. I mean, if you think it's an issue in Maine, it's definitely an issue in California here too. You know, supply and quality. But I think it's having conversations with the people that do the reffing organization and other club leaders. It's something that we kind of have to work together to figure out.
Yeah.
It's because it doesn't really fall squarely on anybody's plate. It would be nice if it did, and it would be nice if it wasn't falling on my plate. But nevertheless, it's one of those things that we as a community need to address.
Yeah, totally. And it's a tough job too. And that, that's, I got tons of respect for officials. And it's a
Same.
tough, it's tough sometimes as a coach when you're, walking that line between respect for the officials and, oh my God, what's going on? But I think, lacrosse it's a growing game. And, if you're looking to give back, you make some money too if you're reffing. So it's not a bad second job. So
Totally. And if you're a high schooler, or even we can have for reffing youth, we can have like 14. If you're over the age of 13, you can referee youth games here. So
nice.
like you can make, if you're 14 and up, like you can make some good money. It's a little lesson in supply and demand, but I think that's a different podcast. So, all right, Bill. Well, this is a nice little catch up, and stay warm out there, and it's stay warm out there, and see you on the next one.
Good luck today. Day one.